of us, our love for the sport that we coach comes from a love from the sport that we played or grew up watching. And so because of that, a lot of our energy and purpose around the sport, without even thinking, sometimes subconsciously, comes from our history with it. I would propose to you this morning that a lot of your why in life is wrapped up in the greatest metaphors to ever live, and that's the sport that has probably taught each one of us so much about life. So, I don't want to just stand on a soapbox and inspire you to say, yeah, you're right. I need to have more of a why in what I do. And I want to give us more practical steps that you can use. Coaching in a program or at a college or at a high school or in a feeder program, you are a part of an ecosystem. Most of us are existing within some ecosystem, some organizational structure that we cannot change. You are a part of a program that has a director or has someone who's leading. And for some of you on the call, you're leading youth organizations where you have multiple teams playing underneath your leadership. I bring this up because it is important. Whether you are in business and leading a business, whether you are a head coach leading just a 8 and 9-year-old team in an organization, your every action is breeding a response in young people that they will carry for a lifetime. You may be coaching because you grew up underneath good coaches and you just want to give back. You may be coaching because you have the intentions of, going to the next level and coaching at a high scale. And so each step for you is being calculated along of what you're trying to accomplish. I propose to you that in living in an ecosystem like today, especially one that's mostly virtually, that it is important that, especially as young coaches, that you sit down and you truly think through who you are going to become and what that team or that organization will become. The last thing you want to do is run out as a coach and be a carbon copy of the coach you grew up under. Because one, the community you're living in may be calling for a different kind of coach, a different kind of communicator. So for you, understanding the community you're in, do those kids know how to kick a soccer ball? Do they even own soccer shoes? How much playing experience is had in this community? Does the community need another competitive team, or does the community need a developmental team? Do they need a club sport, or do they need someone who's serious about just teaching kids how to make a chest and overhead pass? All of those things are just important, are more important than you, right? What most of us do, and the picture you see in the background of this one is one that is taken of one of our partners, Dennis in Kibra, Africa. First time I went to Africa, in that first opportunity that I was there, I hopped off of the bus in all of my Western swag and excitement, and the kids were looking at me like, who are you? I took no time at all. I was excited, genuinely excited. But I was more excited about me being in Africa than I was to take the time to truly be among them and to understand what they needed beyond basketball first. And so I say that because for every coach, if you take the time before you run into those practices, whether that's during tryouts or right afterwards, to take your time to determine, where are you going? Are you in a private school, a public school? And what do those kids need? Where are you? And then from there, you determine why you exist. And then how you can find success with the basic ingredients of your history, your playing experience, and your ability to help those young people in that season. That's calculation. It's not I have a flex offense that I grew up learning, and, these kids are going to play this and they're going to run this from now on. And that becomes the goal. As an organization and as a coach who's starting with I call children who are just learning how to play blank canvases, you have to be calculated with every practice. And so you understanding your why in that season starts with you determining what they're going to need in advance. Once you've seen those children, where their athletic ability is. You've seen some of what kind of coaching they can take, each one of them. Your job is to then calculate what your plan is to help them develop in however many practices and however long that season is in that year. In every community, a coach has a powerful opportunity to affect change. But in the world we're living in now, for a lot of us, we're not dealing with our young people, our student athletes directly as much. I want to say that here's an opportunity again for you to get to your whiteboard and ask yourself, what are the children who are now stuck at the house, safer at home, dealing with? Why do I exist in this moment? And how can I find success as a coach whose windows with my children are limited right now in real time? Next up after that, if we move, I would say would be commandments. Commandments in the faith that I grew up learning as a child and that I now hold to as an adult. The Ten Commandments was taught when I was young. I thought it was connected to a faith that talked about all these things that I didn't want to be a part of. You know, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. As I grew older, I recognized that these things only led the way to places of discipline that maybe I'll miss the mark in areas I can aspire to. In that same way, every coach, especially every young coach who walks into a gym with young athletes who all have bottled up energy and passion, which are excited to be there. And whether you were talking soccer, basketball, you could be doing anything, that they're excited to have this unbottled energy out and about. You have to be able to draw your line in the sand. Whether they are 5-year-old athletes or whether they are 15-year-olds, you have to have a way in which you know what are your non-negotiables. What are the things that you absolutely will not debate with a 5-year-old on or a 15-year-old on? Hey, what time does practice start? What are the thou shalt not be late for practice consequences? How do you implement the fact that you believe in accountability, player accountability? How do you build that into your commitments that you ask of your teams? We would take these commandments and we would make a student, a player, and a parent covenant. For every child that joined our program for a season, because we were calculated in what we wanted to give away, we knew our kids had to be at practice. So our why in development for all led to us making a commandment out of practice. Whether that kid was 7 years old or whether he was a 16-year-old kid joining us on a club team, you could not miss a practice without calling us and letting us know you weren't going to make it. And two, you could not miss more than 3 practices. Why? Because practice allowed us those windows of opportunities to impact our athletes that we could not get back if they missed. What are your commandments? What are those things that are non-negotiables for you? How will you then use those non-negotiables to teach your players about accountability and give them these disciplines that they can aspire to over a lifetime?
Okay. So the next thing I would say is that writing out your purpose statement is key. Getting that on paper helps communicate what you're looking to do. It gives you that aspiration. Maybe all of what you're envisioning does not exist. The first purpose statement that I wrote for this Interman Basketball Academy you see here, as I said, I wrote without owning more than 1 basketball and no gym to play in and no kids to yet coach. And so this came for me as a calculated step in understanding what I was going to be offering in an oversaturated athletic market, because I knew that I had more to bring to the table than just basketball. And I would say the same for you. Another exercise in this step in which we teach with any of our coaches is to take a piece of paper, draw a summary at the top, draw a line right down the middle of it. And then you've got to write on 2 sides. Whatever you're coaching, there's going to be more that you want to teach than the time and that a season allots. And you've got to write, what do you care about on one side and what am I good at on another? And you got to determine how those two things match, and how you can then flesh those out and pull those off in real time with athletes. The third, I would say, is probably my most exciting one, and that would be Creed. Every team has a huddle, right? Doesn't matter the sport. Every team has a time when every player comes together, every coach comes together. You leave a locker room with a coach having a final instruction. I've found that in fleshing out my why, me being able to build a slogan, a creed that allows everyone to be able to rally around why we are all together, keeps us all focused on the same goal. As you notice here on the side of Creed, there are two examples. The first one I'll read here for us are two examples of two creeds. One, if you envision these kids and you coming together, great incentives. An athletic organization says, I will keep moving forward into tomorrow with confidence and hard work. I will respect myself and others. I will set a good example for my peers. Education is my ticket to a better tomorrow. I will succeed. And finally, we have the 5 steps to writing a creed. Again, here's where you make some real strong strides in determining who you are and who you want your organization to become. What do you want to hear your kids saying together in that final practice, right before you break, and right before you break that huddle out of a fiery timeout where your kids really need to go out? What will you be able to bring them together in? What's your rally cry going to be? And finally, what I'll leave you with in the whole process of determining your why is that you are the difference. Each coach has a unique ability of bringing their experience to the table in a way that makes a difference. Your history with the sport, your history with your coaches, mixed with the ingredients of your current intellectual property, you taking the time now to think through who your team will become, what kind of coach you will be, what environment do you currently have the opportunity to affect change as a coach. You have the opportunity, even right now in a virtual world, to be the difference, to be able in an information world to be calculated in what you share with your athletes and how you move them along. And so I encourage you to take time over the course of this day to think about your why. One wonderful exercise that I do typically in person that I had a chance to do last year with coaches was to write a letter to your younger self. Take time to look at your why and discover right now, hey, am I just reduplicating the messages I got from the coaches that inspired me? Am I treating my athletes thoughtlessly in the same way, just giving away what I was taught without taking the time to be calculated? I encourage you to spend the day writing and asking yourself, why am I here? And how can I take it further than I want to be a coach into here's who I am, and here's who the people I am looking to coach are, and here's how I'll put the two together to help us accomplish whatever our goals are in that season as a team.